welcome to EyeOpener, powered by Siemens. And now, please welcome your host, Gugan Sangha.
And I think it does create that animosity and fear
Yeah.
when it comes to implementing something that's going to help, with the business issues and the problems. But there is always going to be that fear that this could essentially replace someone's job role, and, having this makes it easier. But I guess you touched on the point that, we're just help to assist with the process and, make it easier for them. But, not saying that, people's jobs are going to be replaced by this system.
No. I think that there's lots of different... actually, I asked Chat MQL, whatever it is, MGT, I can't remember the acronym. What's the Microsoft product? GPT, Chat GPT. Yeah. I asked it last week, something along those lines, but worded slightly differently. And the answer it gave was that AI was to enhance the human function or something along those lines. It'd be better if I had this written down. But anyway,
No, it's okay,
we've all got our desktop now. And we can ask
it's fine.
Yeah, but I'm sure there are lots of areas where AI is going to not just change job functions, but get rid of some roles. But I think it will also increase other roles.
Yeah.
I remember when I first joined the industry, I remember hearing someone saying that the factory of the future would have one man and one dog. And the man would be there to look after the dog, and the dog would be there to make sure the man didn't touch anything. I don't know where that came from, but if that future exists, we're nowhere near it. It's not going to be in our cycle of product development, right? Everything that we do is there to provide basically bits of information, memes, stuff that people can use to make better decisions.
Yeah. It still links back to this whole AI.
Yeah.
I think that, like you mentioned about, nowadays, online, you've got all of these kind of chatbots and you can ask questions and, if you're not sure, and it provides you all the information.
Yeah.
So it does put that question in, linking back to what we mentioned about this whole cultural change, because the fact that technology is getting so advanced now and the way people are operating their businesses and, this helps to provide more efficiency. It does make you question whether or not your job is still going to be there,
Yeah. And I mean, but if you look at the roles that we have now, sitting here, we're getting paid to do this, having a chat about technology because we work for a technology conversation. And when I started my career, anybody who could see some portal of the future, which I don't exist, we haven't invented them yet, seeing this would have no idea what we're talking about. And our job roles didn't exist. My job then was sitting at a desk with an ashtray and a telephone and the yellow pages. And there was no other systems that would allow me to achieve the stuff that we do now. You think what we do now is based on all sorts of technologies that seem just sort of everyday. And I mean, look at LinkedIn, just an everyday, an everyday directory of everybody you might want to speak to, where they've willingly given all their details. So there's been total change on those fronts, but we still have jobs.
Yeah.
And it's meant that my career's been interesting because it continuously changes.
Yeah.
But I would say that if you're going to talk about parallel technologies, I think the implementation of something like PDM in a factory environment is the same kind of help that you have from having a really good sat-nav in a car. It's not driving the car for you. It's giving you additional information to make you do your driving better.
Yeah.
That's the level it's at. I'm not sure this is a misconception. It's a bad assumption.
Okay.
That pretty much every company makes, that they are unique and different from other businesses, and therefore, before they go anywhere near applying a budget to a predictive maintenance project, they have to do a small experiment to prove that it works, and to prove that it works in their very unique environment, with their very unique machines and people. And I totally understand why people do it. And it's deeply frustrating for a couple of reasons. First of all, because I'm a sales guy and I want to sell. I don't want to sell small projects. I want to sell full projects. But in reality, if you think about what it is we do, and then you try and test that in a small environment, you will learn next to zero. And it's back to terminology. People talk about proof of concept. I mean, it's absolutely nonsense to do a proof of concept with Senseye, because the concept of Senseye has been hard proven time and time again. This afternoon it's being proven. This afternoon there are maintenance teams who are opening up the platform in whatever format they use it in and seeing cases that have been raised from us having sensor data pushed to the cloud to us, and we're making assumptions about state and telling them about it. And they're affecting their outcome. It's proven. It's done.
Yeah.
You don't need to prove it. You can just randomly call up any of our clients and have a chat. But still, you can still see why people might do that. But the real problem is when people then want to test Senseye on 5 machines or 10 machines. It's the outcome. Okay, so if you think about what Senseye is, there's an implementation of technology. And that happens once with some ongoing bits and pieces. But who cares about? That might be a really good experience. It might be a bit difficult, but that's not the product, right? There's the product once it's implemented, that's in the background running. That's not test worthy. You're not going to learn anything by testing that. The interesting bit is when it starts to raise cases, where it starts to give you information. And you can do a bunch of things there. You can say, well, we want to make sure that Senseye technology is not too sensitive. It doesn't constantly raise cases that are not of interest and flood our maintenance team with time-wasting activities. Now, we know it's not going to do that, but the client doesn't know it, so they need to test that. But that should be testable in pretty short order. Really, you want to know that the cases are relevant. But actually what happens next is the bit that this is where I would start measuring it and testing it. When people are in a room or online discussing the cases and making decisions, that's the beginning of the product, right? Everything else before is the structure. Everything else is like this phone. I mean, I don't need to test anything about this phone. I can make phone calls with it, and all the other functions I use for it work, and that's the bit I should be testing. Shouldn't be asking questions about what's inside it and where did they get the lithium from and did they have the right kind of. That's none of my business in a way. So the question is, what happens when you're actually using it? So the cases are raised, a discussion ensues, a decision is made of some sort about what action to take. And then they go and take that action. That action might be greasing something or taking something apart or replacing a piece of the machinery, whatever it is. And then that activity will affect the future. Right? They will hopefully avoid a failure that was going to happen that now doesn't happen. That's the bit you need to test. And if you test that on 5 machines, you're never going to learn anything because it's never going to happen. And for that to happen, you have to have maintenance people involved and they have to make decisions. And if you test it on 5 machines and the maintenance people are looking after 1,000 machines, you're going to be the anomalous, irritating project that they keep remembering 5 minutes before the meeting on a Friday. That, I didn't log in again. Or they were too busy to log in, or there was something happening, they couldn't get involved. So for a project to work, for you to learn, not that our technology says what it is true, but for you to learn about this type of technology in your environment for your particular maintenance makeup, on your particular very special, very unique machines in a very unique company, you need to really deploy it across quite a large number of things for a large period of time to get a large number of different things happen that you can learn about. I'm still personally working on the best way of explaining that in a beneficial way to organisations, but also respecting the fact that life's not perfect. You can't go out and test everything in the way that I've just described. There has to be some steps towards it. So finding the best way of organising those steps so that people get the exposure they need to learn properly at the same time as not disrespecting the fact that they have to go through a company process and release budgets by certain proof points. So we're getting better at that, but there's a big disconnect there, and that's to do with some, as the theme is today, some misassumptions about the way this stuff can work.
So another question I wanted to ask you, Nathaniel, was just around is predictive maintenance really just condition monitoring? And the reason I ask is because it seems to come up quite a lot. And I would love to hear what you've got to say around this question.
Yeah, no, it's a good debating point. And in many ways, it shouldn't be a debate. We should all be able to agree on terminology, etc. But again, some of this stuff comes down to terminology.
Yeah.
And you're right, you'll hear some people in the back of the room going, oh, this is just condition monitoring. We've been doing this for years. And they're right. So we can talk a bit about what those things are. But just for Rob Russell's benefit, because Rob Russell is our CTO, as you know.
Yeah.
And he's worked in the industry for a long time. He was in aerospace for a long time. And he observes correctly that almost everybody in the market, and client side and vendor side, gets the terminology wrong. There are condition indicators, which are things that indicate condition, just data that you can use to infer something about condition. And there's condition monitoring, which is monitoring the condition of something, probably using those indicators, stuff from sensors, from PLC, whatever it might be. And then there is condition-based maintenance. I can be really careful I'm getting this right now. CBM, condition-based maintenance. Yep. You're maintaining your assets based on their condition. And you understand their condition because you've been monitoring it, doing condition monitoring, using condition indicators. But very often people talk about condition-based monitoring and various other permutations of it. And it sort of doesn't matter, but it also sort of does matter because they're just terms and people sort of think they know what they mean.
Yeah.
But actually, if you don't sit back and think about what it is you're saying, then everything that we explore thereafter can go a bit wrong. So if we understand that when you measure the condition of something, if you register over time the condition of something, then the first thing you can do is react to change. So there are lots of people in the market, or there are lots of clients who currently have condition monitoring solutions. They might be sensors that they go and take a reading from once a month. There might be something that gives them readings 24/7. Sometimes they'll have an external service, people who come in who help them make head or tail of the data. Sometimes they'll have somebody in a maintenance team whose an enviable job is to, alongside the rest of their tasks, have to look at this data and infer meaning from it. So the idea of looking at condition and using it as a way of modelling your maintenance process is as old as the hills. So is what we do different? For us to provide a predictive maintenance solution, we need condition monitoring data. We need condition indicators. It's the very same data. But if you think about what we do, we could just stop our service at the point of saying, give us the data and we will tell you if it changes. So we'd be taking what they were doing before and we'd be making it a 24/7 service. So we say, chap who comes and looks at this data, stand down. Third party who comes in and takes readings, really sorry, we've taken your contract. And now it's a 24/7 service and it doesn't require human intervention. It will raise cases when you need to think about something that you can start talking about your meetings. And that would be a good solution. We could go to market and sell that, and we would call it a condition monitoring service.
Yeah.
That allowed companies to have a condition-based maintenance approach. What we actually do goes beyond that because, as you know, we don't just look at the condition indicators. We also learn, or the application learns over time about failure modes, how things work under pressure, how things work under different regimes, different operating states. And we learn, I would say we, it's nothing to do with me, the application learns from maintenance information that can be implemented, input by the maintenance team. So we can start to make much more insightful observations, not just something's changing, but something's changing and we think it will breach a threshold at point X.
Yeah. Or
something's changing and we've seen this kind of change before and we therefore think it correlates with a particular type of failure. And if you really want to, if I really want to sound like I'm completely ignoring everything I said at the beginning, you could say we've seen this type of failure before. We know how this plays out. We know that you've got at least 29 days before you have to intervene, but it is going to fail, and the failure is going to be this type of failure. Not a prediction on the date, but it's some pretty good insight about nature of failure. And then we can start to give information about mitigating actions. So the more we've seen before, the more we can advise on activities to mitigate. All of those things are premised on having condition indicators. So they are effectively an extension of a condition monitoring service. So the answer to the question from one line of sight is yes, it's just condition-based maintenance, it's just condition monitoring. But that can be used against us in a way when people say that and they don't understand that it has all this extra value add, these layers of different type of cases that are raised. I mean, what we do is, I always dumb it down and say it's just about notifying to change and allowing people to make decisions. What we do is extraordinary. I mean, the algorithms, etc., that sit in the background that do the work are as extraordinary as any other things you see emerging in the market. And the insights that they give are really clever.
Yeah.
But clever as they are, all they're there to do is to guide maintenance teams to make a decision. So yeah, I think it's a kind of wordplay situation, isn't it? It is an extension of what we've done in the past. It's just very, very good at it.
To find out more, search Senseye Predictive Maintenance.